Hi, welcome back to 26 Minutes with David Cohen here with you. This is our deeper dive part of our interview, and we're with Rose Davidson, all the way from Tasmania, Australia. Which and when we spoke before today, you mentioned, yeah, Tasmania. You know where the Tasmania Devil comes from, and immediately, took me back to when I was a kid and watching Looney Tune cartoons. So welcome back. Rose, in order to prevent, when we're talking about domestic violence and two initiatives that Rose is involved with, in order to prevent domestic violence from happening, do you feel we need to bring in our schools or religious centers and really start to teach kids about the impact that and why it's not cool to do? If you're angry, violence isn't the way to solve the problem. And that,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
agree.
still okay. I feel it's okay to be angry, but let's have more creative ways to deal with one's anger. What do you think we need to start there in our school system? Because I don't recall learning about this.
No, I don't either. And my plan eventually is to go and share my lived experience as a domestic violence survivor and an incest survivor. I want to share those two things with children and make them aware that the impact and the mental health issues that can come along with being a survivor of both of those afflictions.
It's funny. I recently read two books, one by a man and another by a woman, both on personal growth and spirituality and their scope. And both authors shared the abuse they suffered through growing up as kids at the hands of their parents. Usually the father to blame, but also the mother. The father was more physically violent, meting out punishment, the belts, whatever. The mother, though, was passive or an enabler in both cases. They were hurting too. I know in one case, one mother was doing some sort of drug to kind of help her with her nerves. Um, so both cases, the father was the more aggressive, the mother was more passive, but also enabling. How do we teach this then to future generations that these patterns and behaviors aren't cool?
Yeah, that's a toughie because you don't want to go against your parents for fear of punishment. But I think if children were to speak up to someone that they trust, whether it's a teacher, a counsellor, a grandparent, um, a policeman, anyone that that they feel will believe them, I think that is the first step. It's you can't keep it to yourself, because if you're being punished and or abused in some form by one or both parents, then you need to not be there, because it will affect you for the rest of your life. It does. I have now complex PTSD. I have bipolar, and I have emotional dysfunction disorder because of the childhood abuse that I endured, not only as a child with my parents, but the domestic violence that I suffered through from the time I was 14. So yeah, so I'm on medication for that, but that it's just when you've got complex PTSD, the memories come flooding back for no reason at some odd time of the day or night, and they just come out of nowhere, and it's just something that you never get over. People say just get over it, but you can't. It's ingrained in you. It's ingrained in your memory. It's ingrained in your DNA, and you know to try and overcome. I mean, I've overcome the challenges of having those disorders. However, it's difficult for children because they don't know where to go. They don't know what's happening to them psychologically. And they've got to go and seek help. Or if someone can see that there's problems in the family, then they need to intervene, and they've got to stop being afraid of interfering, because quite honestly, the children are the ones in a domestic violence relationship who suffer the most, because they're young. Their brains still aren't developed until you're 25. So the first 7 years of a child's life is when they're most impressionable. And this is where they learn most of their behaviors. And that's when a lot of their mental illnesses come into play, because they're being abused at home. And you can tell I'm quite strong. I'm quite passionate about this
Mm,
topic. So, yeah, so you've got to get them away. You've got to get either the family counseled, or you've got to get those children away from that environment somehow. And it's not interfering, it's helping. It's helping that child or children.
yeah, but it's such a messy thing to get into, though, eh?
It is, but you've got to have the courage. I mean, would you, if you had a loving home environment, and you cared for your children greatly, and you saw that maybe your next door neighbor's children were challenged with abuse of some type, would you not want to protect them? It's not interfering, it's helping.
Yeah,
And we've got to get over that mindset that you're interfering in someone else's relationship, because if you don't intervene, those children could die, the wife could die, or the husband could die. If you don't step in, if you step in, you could be saving a life or two. Honestly, I mean, how many times have you heard of a man shooting his wife and children because they've separated, and if he can't see the children, then she's not having them either, or vice versa.
yeah,
And then the family gets killed and they end up killing themselves. What a waste of life. Absolutely. Step in, do something. You can do it to the police anonymously. You can do it to child services anonymously. You don't have to identify yourself.
yeah. You know, so you been a victim of domestic violence. Sounds like growing up was not an easy ride either, and it's translated into mental health issues for you. Um, how did this also affect your career and work?
Oh, I always drank too much. I used to find comfort in the bottom of a bottle. I was never drunk on the job, but I'd go home and binge drink every night. And it wasn't unheard of for me to drink a bottle of vodka or a bottle of something every single night. So yeah, it was a very expensive habit. I don't drink anymore, except on very special occasions, and I'll only have one or two. So I
Good.
don't see the need to be drunk anymore. I don't have that need to find the comfort in the bottom of a bottle. But a lot of people do turn to alcohol to ease the pain. They turn to drugs to ease the pain. It's it's a terrible wheel that survivors get on, and sometimes it's really hard to get off.
When you chose to get off and you chose self-love, that's what it sounds like.
Mm.
How did things then change for the better, or did they?
Oh, yeah, I had a better relationship with my children and my husband. Even though that we, not being violent towards each other for a number of years before I gave up the drink. And he was a heavy drinker as well. So we would drink together. A lot of the times the domestic violence happened because we're drunk, to put it in quite plain English.
Mm,
If most of the times when we were sober, we'd talk about it. But I went on a medical trial to try out a new antidepressant. And one of the provisos for me to go on the trial was that I had to give up alcohol. And I was quite happy to do that, because I wanted to help other people with mental illnesses, utilize this drug. And so how it affected me was great insights in and how the drug was used for others. So I was happy that I gave up the alcohol to be able to help others.
yeah, we're happy to. Sounds like you're doing good
Thanks.
work. And it sounds like you're also at a place where you're loving your life a bit and loving, yeah. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm pretty much, yeah, I'm a bit of a homebody at the moment. I don't go, my husband's got dementia, so it's a bit hard for me to leave the house, and he's got other medical conditions as well. So I don't leave the house a great deal, but My podcast keeps me happy, and the work I do for others keeps me happy. So yeah, I love what I do. I love helping others, and this is why I got involved in the charity that's my charity of choice now. Um, Global Glamping Charities. My friend, um, she is the national marketing manager, and she knew that I was challenged financially, so I could have become homeless through economic circumstances,
Mm,
trying to keep my business afloat. And so she introduced me to the CEO of Global Glamping Charities, and their priority is to help those that may be facing homelessness through natural disasters or domestic violence or economic situations, and
mm,
they provide low cost housing. And I was fortunate enough that they took over some of my financial things because they get a discount from different suppliers, software programs and so forth. So they offered me the um, the opportunity to get on board with them, and I do a lot of their admin work for them now, and getting up a podcast for them. So they support my business and my podcast, and my two podcasts.
and also they support, you know, the victims of domestic violence who
They do, yes, yes.
probably
It
are
just
facing some sort of homelessness, or they go to shelters, or you know, as a stopgap measure, right?
Yeah, well, just recently, just within the last week, they've secured funding for a house that they're providing to a lady who lost her home through the floods in the north coast of New South Wales. And another lady had a domestic violence situation. She reached out to our national manager, and we were able to get her into a shelter and save her and her children from further abuse.
Amazing. And then what, like 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, the fires, of course, in Australia
Yeah,
wreaked
yeah.
havoc. That global glamping kind of saw a huge increase then, you know, and
Yeah, yeah. The charity actually didn't start until after the pandemic started. Global Glampings was established in 2019 with a vision to solving homelessness, but they were going to offer glamping experiences, but the pandemic put a hold on that and lockdowns and so forth. So in 2022, there was a new focus, and that was to provide housing solutions to people. They're not looking for handouts so much as they want to win-win. They want a win-win for for them, for the people that they're helping, and for the society as well, so that we can, because in Australia, the housing problems here are really bad. There's not enough social housing. I think in Tasmania is a very small state, and there are 4,000 people on the waiting list to get social housing. So, and sometimes they've been waiting 5, 6, some have been waiting 20 years to get on social housing.
yeah,
So,
it's bad here too, oddly enough. Our rents are atrocious,
oh, here too, yeah.
like crazy high. You know, housing is not cheap, even in these past 3 years where the economy has been really, you know, rocked. Houses still, you know, not cheap, and then interest rates went up as well. We've had some real, like, these past 3.5 years have really thrown a lot of challenges at us, and you know,
Yeah.
there's been some good, because you know, you're hearing people like Dr. Gabor Mate talking about healing trauma, and I just saw, you know, another, you know, presenter talking about a trauma summit, and then there's another summit for mental health and wellness. So we're looking at it, so
Mm.
that's good. But on the other hand, you know, the cases are also going up, like the cases of domestic violence, the cases of needing proper housing. So we really need to sort of make an adjustment, I feel, and really look at these things head on and go, okay, it needs new ideas, it needs help, and
It does. Yeah.
we can't ignore it. It's super sad. Couple questions left. talked about men in our 26 minutes with version, and of course women. Are you seeing an uptick in seniors abuse as well? And is it
Elder abuse, yes.
elder
Yeah.
abuse? Yeah. So does healing through love assist in these cases too?
No, we don't deal with that's a separate sort of a thing. There again, the elder abuse is the same. We're finding that people are moving in with their parents because they just can't afford the rents here. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like sometimes it's someone's whole week's wage goes in rent, and if you haven't got a partner, you don't eat. And so a lot of them are moving back in with mum or dad or both. And sometimes the parents are a bit feeble, have it may be developing dementia or other health issues.
Mm-hmm.
Elder abuse isn't as reported, so I can't really speak to the statistics on that. But no, healing through love doesn't. We just deal with domestic violence. I think that's a big enough pot to deal with without having to add other things to it. So yeah.
My last question is how can we and this is kind of came up when I was preparing this. How do we shift away from calling using the name, the term victims? In other words, to me, a victim, it's a label. And how do
We
we
call them survivors. We don't call them
Okay.
victims, or we call them victim survivors because they are surviving. So we tend not to use victim on its own because you're right, it is a label. But if you call them a victim survivor or a survivor, then they are surviving through the trauma, and they're even more of a survivor if they've managed to get out of that situation. So
I feel like a survivor is a lot more empowering because, like, as a victim, you're going to be a victim your whole life. And do you want to be that? I don't think so.
you don't. You want to be a survivor, and you
That's-
want to get into a place where you can, find that you can love yourself and respect yourself, and find all those things that you're absolutely worthy, that you are enough, that you deserve the very best things in life that life has to offer you.
yeah, and that that's available, right? That a good life is available. It doesn't mean you're going to be rich and famous necessarily, but you can live a good life and contribute to others in your work and in your life like you've done. Yeah, really amazing stuff. I really appreciate this today, Rose. Again, where do we work with you where do we reach you? Where can we connect? I know you're on Facebook, but you want to just give us the key coordinates?
Yeah, well, if someone wants to reach out to me and learn more about healing through love, they can reach out to me at hello@htl-australia.org, and that's HTLAUSTRALIA.org. I have to remember how to spell Australia. That's pretty
I
sad,
know.
isn't it?
Don't ask me. One L.
Or you can reach out to me if you want some, podcasting help. I can train you how to be a podcaster. I can do your editing, or I can do the whole thing from start to finish for you, or I can even coordinate your online event. You can reach out to me at rose-davidson.com.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love your services. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's just the hours you keep are crazy.
Come on.
Well, it's 14 hours difference, like you're working, I'm asleep.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, my gran used to live in Alberta, so it was 17 hours.
Oh boy.
So if we had to ring, it was like 17 hours we had to wait to call her. And so if we wanted to ring at 12 o'clock, we had to make sure that she was out of bed.
Well, remember, like, I'm going back. Remember when it was 1999 and all the fear about Y2K in 2000?
Oh, absolutely, yes, yeah.
So I was watching TV and going, "Oh, Australia made it. If they're okay, we're okay." You know what I mean? The planes
Yeah,
weren't flying out
absolutely.
of the sky, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, Australia, we've got somewhere on the on the east coast that gets the sun the first thing in the first place the sun hits in the entire world. So I've been to that place. It's absolutely stunning.
Amazing. So here in Canada, if you go up to north, Yukon, Yellowknife, none of it. It's dark in the winter. You get 2 hours of sunlight in the winter. That's hard. But in the summer, you could be golfing till midnight or past midnight.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's still light out. So it's such a dichotomy for sure. Rose, I
It
really
is.
appreciate this. I think it's important work. I like the fact that businesses and communities are getting involved. And this is major stuff. This domestic violence and how we treat each other at home. It affects so much. It could affect your career as it did for you at the beginning. It can, it affects your kids. Like, just get in touch, like, with somebody that can help you to move forward and get you out of that situation. So
Absolutely.
really, thank you so much for this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation, David.
A real pleasure. So that's the Deeper Dive edition of 26 Minutes With. We'll be back next week with a brand new guest and a brand new episode, and maybe even a new host. We're going to be joining forces with Dion Baker. You're going to love her. She's quite the entrepreneur. So like us, share, do all those fun things. It's been a joy being here today, and a joy having a nice discussion with Rose Davidson. Thank you so much.